Pro-establishment heavyweight gives his verdict on foreign judge controversy. Chief Executive John Lee has recovered from COVID. Washington bans Huawei and other Chinese tech companies. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The national security trial of Next Digital founder Jimmy Lai is set to begin on December 1st. But whether the overseas lawyer hired by Lai will be allowed to represent the media mogul remains unclear. Responding to the involvement of a non-local lawyer in a national security case, a veteran pro-Beijing Hong Kong politician said only the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress has the capability to interpret the law properly. Timothy Lee has more.
Next Digital founder Jimmy Lai had earlier been permitted by the High Court to use the King's Counsel Timothy Owen from the UK to defend himself in an upcoming national security trial, a decision that the Secretary for Justice opposed. Among others who also opposed the involvement of an overseas lawyer in a national security trial is the city's sole Standing Committee member of the National People's Congress, Tam Yu-chung. Tam said the involvement of foreign lawyers in national security cases may pose a risk of outside interference in the nation's internal matters. He said that if no adjustments are made, only the National People's Congress would be able to make an appropriate interpretation for matters surrounding the national security law. The veteran pro-Beijing politician emphasized that he simply expressed his personal opinion, while pointing out that it was impossible for Owen to fully comprehend the law as the law was drafted in Chinese, and its English version is merely for reference. Meanwhile, senior counsel Ronnie Tong recalled how Hong Kong has always employed overseas lawyers due to its colonial history, and that there is no need to be overly concerned about employing Owen for this trial. Tong added that the basic law permits the use of foreign lawyers. But Tong believes the city should nurture more local lawyers well-versed in the national security law instead of relying on their overseas counterparts in future cases. The Court of Final Appeal will issue a written judgment on Monday on whether Owen will ultimately be able to represent Lai in this trial. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
6 people were convicted of rioting in relation to the siege of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University in 2019 at District Court today. The sentencing has been adjourned to December 10th. The 6 defendants, aged between 18 and 23, were the first batch of arrestees to be prosecuted in relation to the PolyU protest 3 years ago. They were accused of participating in a riot at PolyU between November 17th and 18th in 2019. It was learned that the defendants tried to break out from the campus, which was blocked by the police at that time, and they went into hiding in the Hong Kong Science Museum. The government said it did not find a political motive behind the recent national anthem blunder at the International Rugby Tournament. Authorities stressed that the Sports Federation and Olympic Committee of Hong Kong's newly announced national anthem guidelines are not meant to target athletes. Timothy Lee again.
Over the course of the past few months, the world of Hong Kong rugby has been rocked with continuous incidents of the national anthem either being mislabeled or misplayed with a song related to the Hong Kong independence movement. The Sports Federation and Olympic Committee earlier issued guidelines for the Hong Kong Rugby Union requiring its players to signal with their hands if blunders involving the national anthem or the SAR flag were to happen again in the future. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Kevin Yeung said the new guidelines are not meant to target the players or anyone for inaction, but to provide a clearer understanding for the athletes on how to act during such scenarios. Yeung, who was not at the matches at the time of the blunders, believes the mistakes were not of a political nature.
What I said is based on the information and the evidence we have on hand, and also based on the explanation from the Asia Rugby and also the World Rugby. At this stage, we have no evidence to show that there is any political move behind the incidents. But at the same time, the police is still carrying out its investigation, so we could not really come to a conclusion until we see the investigation of the police.
Earlier, Asia Rugby president Kais Al-Dalai personally came to the city to apologize to the Hong Kong government. Meanwhile, the police's Organized Crime and Triad Bureau noted it will continue its investigation into the matter. Authorities revealed that the employee responsible for the national anthem blunder at the Incheon rugby match has no connection with Hong Kong. The city's sport chief said if necessary, the police will cooperate with overseas law enforcement to share information related to the case. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Hong Kong reported 8,874 new COVID infections today, 509 of which were imported. Meanwhile, the first batch of BioNTech bivalent vaccines arrived in the city today. Christy Khan has more.
Earlier, the government had procured 1.9 million doses of the BioNTech bivalent vaccine, which targets the Omicron BA.5 strain from the manufacturer. The first batch of the vaccine arrived in Hong Kong yesterday, while the remaining doses are set to be delivered to the city by the end of the year. Secretary for the Civil Service Ingrid Yuan, who is in charge of the city's vaccination campaign, suggests that people aged 50 or above, or anyone with weak immunity, take the fourth jab. For those wanting to take the bivalent vaccine as their fourth dose, online reservations will open tomorrow. The actual administering of the bivalent vaccine will start next Thursday. But individuals should be aware that the bivalent vaccine option is not open to everyone.
Actually, the bivalent vaccine is only for those who are having their fourth dose. So those who are having their first to third dose, they would not have this choice of bivalent vaccine. So only those who are taking the fourth dose need to choose between the bivalent or the old one.
Meanwhile, on his sixth day of home isolation, Chief Executive Johnny wrote on his social media saying his rapid antigen test results today was negative. He added that he was still experiencing mild symptoms such as coughing. After attending the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Thailand last week, Lee tested positive for COVID after returning to Hong Kong last Sunday. Christy Khan, TVB News.
The mainland logged over 30,000 new local COVID cases for a third consecutive day, with Beijing reporting more than 2,500 new infections. Protests broke out in Urumqi, Xinjiang, after a deadly fire killed 10 people in an apartment under lockdown. Angry residents called for the lifting of the lockdown. About 8,400 new cases were reported in Guangdong province, with 88% from its provincial capital, Guangzhou. Tianhe and Fanyu districts of Guangzhou tightened their infection control measures. Blocks were placed at the entrances and exits of neighborhoods, and residents are not allowed to travel across districts. In other news, the U.S. has banned the approval of new telecommunications equipment from China's Huawei Technologies and ZTE, citing an unacceptable risk to national security. That's despite Beijing's opposition to the unreasonable suppression of Chinese companies. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Under the final rules stipulated by the U.S. Federal Communications Commission on Friday, the sale or import of equipment made by Dahua Technology, Hangzhou Hikvision Digital Technology and Hytera Communications will also be banned. The move represents the latest U.S. crackdown on Chinese tech giants as tensions between Washington and Beijing rise. FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenwurzel said the new rules are an important part of ongoing actions to protect the American people from national security threats involving telecommunications. Rosenwurzel had circulated the proposals which effectively bars the firms from selling new equipment in the US to the other three FCC commissioners for final approval last month, before it was approved on Friday. All four commissioners, including 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, supported Friday's move. The FCC's measure comes after Huawei, ZTE, Hytera Communications Corp, Hikvision and Dahua were designated as posing a threat to U.S. national security in March 2021 under a 2019 law aimed at protecting American communications networks. Huawei declined to immediately comment on the matter. Hikvision said in a statement that its products don't threaten U.S. security. The company added the decision will do nothing to protect U.S. national security, but will make it more harmful and more expensive for U.S. small businesses, local authorities, school districts, and individual consumers to protect themselves, their homes, businesses, and property. Addressing a similar UK ban on Chinese surveillance cameras from British government departments announced on Thursday, the Foreign Ministry said Beijing opposes the unreasonable suppression of Chinese companies by generalizing the concept of national security. The Foreign Ministry added China will continue to closely follow the development of and firmly defend the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese enterprises. Dan Rell, TVB News.
Coming up after the break, companies are looking for people who are flexible in job fair. Ukraine remains defiant despite outages due to Russian attacks. U.S. shoppers happy to spend on Black Friday. Welcome back. A job fair offering some 4,000 jobs was held at the Hong Kong Convention and Exhibition Center today. Some recruiters are looking for talents that are flexible to work in both Hong Kong and other cities of the Greater Bay Area. Christy Khan has more.
Over 120 companies from Hong Kong, the mainland, and overseas took part in a job fair at the Convention and Exhibition Center today. The fair covered a wide range of industries offering more than 4,100 jobs, including 3,500 in Hong Kong and about 600 on the mainland. Some Hong Kong-based companies with headquarters in cities in the Greater Bay Area are looking for talents who are flexible in relation to workplace.
My company's mission is to meet those people who love to meet challenges. We provide some graduates the position to travel frequently to China, to our different offices in Shanghai, in Hangzhou, in Beijing, to work with those divisional managers.
As many mainland companies are expanding internationally, some recruiters believe Hong Kong is a good place to hire talent with both local and international knowledge.
So Hong Kong is a very wonderful place to gather talents worldwide, and also he cultivated some local talents that he know China mainland very well, and also has the background of international business rules. He knows how to get along with the outside.
Under a challenging employment market, some students attending the job fair want to explore opportunities in both Hong Kong and the mainland.
So I think Hong Kong is very beautiful place and have more work opportunities for development. So I also think the Great Bay Area is a national development point for the next 30 years. So I think Hong Kong and the Great Bay Area is perfect.
In order to attract more talents to work in cities in the Greater Bay Area, the government and some companies are providing various funding schemes and benefits to make the prospect more attractive. Christy Khan, TVB News.
In Taiwan, polls have closed in local elections, and the results are expected to be clear after 8 p.m. Residents were picking their mayors, city council members, and other local leaders in all 13 counties and in 9 cities. There is also a referendum to lower the voting age from 20 to 18. Campaigns had focused on local issues. They included traffic snarls in Taipei's tech hub, Nangang, and the island's COVID-19 vaccine purchasing strategies, which had left the island in short supply during an outbreak last year. Observers are also waiting to see if outgoing Taipei Mayor Ko Wen-je's Taiwan People's Party candidates will pick up a mayoral seat. A 2024 Taiwan leadership bid for Ko will be affected by his party's political performance, analysts say. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said European allies have pledged an additional 2.5 billion euros in financing to help rebuild the country's infrastructure. The European Commission had previously vowed to give Kyiv 18 billion euros to cover 2023 expenses. It comes as blackouts, death, and destruction continue to plague Ukrainian cities amid Russia's intensified missile attacks. Nazvi Karim has more.
deep within the darkness of this comedy club in the western Ukrainian city of Lviv. Jokes about the lack of power, survival and Russians put smiles on the faces of war-weary local residents. With heavy Russian strikes causing widespread blackouts across Ukraine, the candlelit ambience of the long, stormy Applause Club offers patrons warmth, internet and brief respite from the war that has ravaged many parts of the country. We are adapting to the conditions, says Andrei Azrikhiv, the club's art director. It does not scare us, but actually hardens us. We become angrier and more united under such conditions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Lviv was among the worst hit areas, along with the capital Kyiv, Odessa, Vinnytsia and other regions. He said emergency repairs have helped to reduce the number of Ukrainians without power to 6 million from 10 million earlier this week. For the people of Kherson in the south, recently captured by Ukrainian forces, power shortages were the least of their worries. 38-year-old Lilia Kristenko is mourning the death of her parents, who died within hours of each other after the building they lived in was struck by a missile. Russian forces are intensifying their attacks on the region Moscow claims to have annexed. Ukraine says Russian shelling attacks have killed 15 civilians, including 10 in Kherson, over the past week and injured dozens others. With Kherson's hospitals under strain, authorities are transferring patients to facilities in other cities while urging residents to evacuate to relatively safer areas of the country. Ukrainian forces in Kherson are fighting back, returning fire across the Dnipro River, even as Russian artillery shells continue to bombard their positions. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin met grieving mothers of fallen soldiers in Moscow, claiming that Ukraine are shooting their own servicemen who refuse to fight on the front lines. He said Russian soldiers witnessed such executions while reassuring the mothers that their sons' sacrifices were meaningful. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
In the U.S., Black Friday spending is expected to reach record highs. This as huge discounts entice consumers despite a backdrop of surging inflation. This report from NBC News.
One day does not a holiday season make, much less an economy. But the pre-dawn lines at New Jersey's Westfield Garden State Plaza Mall.
We got here around 4 in the morning, stand in line.
May be exactly what the National Retail Federation has been hoping for. Nationally, 166 million people expected to shop over the Thanksgiving weekend break, up by more than 8 million from last year.
And beyond that, we're expecting retail sales during the holiday season to grow between 6% and 8% to $960 billion, which is also a record.
That despite inflation's looming shadow. Prices up 7.7% over this time last year. But it hasn't stopped school teacher Holly Manguso and her daughters, nor apparently lots of others, from making their annual Black Friday excursions to the mall.
And this is in no way scientific, but I'm looking around me, I'm looking at you. Everybody has bags.
Absolutely,
so
yes.
People are buying.
And we've been on long lines waiting. So that's also another thing that shows that a lot of people are here today shopping.
Shopping, but many telling me in a more price-conscious manner this year.
Used to be like more sales like in the recent years, but as like time goes on, like they're getting less and less.
So do you come here with a budget?
Yes, definitely. I've saved, so like I know like where my limit is. I'm not trying to go over my limit.
Caution flags for the greater economy. A recent survey by Lending Club finding 60% of consumers are living paycheck to paycheck. Another poll finding 48% of holiday shoppers are planning to use credit cards. Melissa Repko is CNBC's retail correspondent.
A lot of people have cut their savings rate, they've dipped into their savings account, and they are running up their credit card using credit more than debit. And that does raise the question of where will the trade-offs kick in?
Retail analysts also carefully watching labor tensions at Amazon, where workers staged protests and walkouts today. And concerns also rising about a potential rail strike in December, just as supply shortages swing the other way.
A lot of retailers, including Target and Walmart, are trying to sell through excess inventory, and that's actually leading to a much more promotional holiday season.
Retailers and consumers leaning into optimism and normalcy this holiday.
It's nice to see people shopping and nice to see people out. It's, you know, a lot of people were skeptical when we were during the pandemic, and And to see a crowd like we have today, it's nice to see that we can enjoy things again.
Nearing the halfway point of its test flight, NASA's Orion capsule entered an orbit stretching tens of thousands of miles around the moon on Friday. The capsule and its 3 test dummies entered lunar orbit more than a week after launching on a $4 billion US demo. It will remain in the orbit for nearly a week. The capsule is expected to reach a maximum distance of almost 432,000 kilometers. That will set a new distance record for a capsule designed to carry people in the future. NASA considers the Orion's orbit a dress rehearsal for the next moon flyby in 2024 with astronauts. A lunar landing by astronauts could follow as soon as 2025.
We are on our way now to distant retrograde orbit, or DRO. Now we're going to do a maneuver to put ourselves into this orbit and to maintain it. We're choosing this orbit because it's extremely stable. It doesn't cost a lot of fuel to maintain your position there, and that gives all of our engineers, our flight controllers, the chance to really learn about Orion systems in deep space, learn about flying a spacecraft farther than we've ever sent one intended for humans.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Have a good Saturday.